Master of Buddhist Studies program and chairman of the Research Postgraduate Committee before officially retiring in 2015. Since 2014, he has been the chairman and director of the Buddha Dharma Center of Hong Kong, which he founded and which has been affiliated to PGI PBS from the beginning. Since 2017 and received several awards. This includes the Bodhi Award for Outstanding Malaysian Buddhist Scholars by the Young Buddhist Association of Malaysia, the Tripitaka Visharada Award by the Amarapura Sri Saddharma Vansa chapter of Sri Lanka, the Endowed Professorship Buddhist Studies of the University of Hong Kong, the Ki Kansei Foundation Fellowship, the Emeritus Professorship by the International Buddhist College, Thailand. In 2021, in recognition of his outstanding scholarship and academic contribution, the University of Hong Kong felicitated him a special ceremony and published in honor of him the Illuminating the Dharma, a volume of essays continuing papers contributed by some of the most eminent international scholars. Contribution to International Buddhist Academia and global recognition. Emeritus Professor Dhammajyoti is acclaimed internationally for his scholarship in the field of Abhidharma studies.
Most Venerable Professor Mahinda Sangharakita, Chancellor of the University of Kelaniya, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Kelaniya, Senior Professor Nilanti Siva, other esteemed colleagues, scholars, students and friends. Today my brief speech is on the Buddhist ideal of transformational education, inspiration for modern university education. My intention is to highlight some teaching from the Sutta Pitaka, discourses by the Buddha, to which we should pay attention, and I believe that the modern educationalist in Buddhist study, in the field of Buddhist study, should be able to derive inspiration at least from the underlying principles. At the outset, let me state that my speech is primarily directed at the fellow Buddhist colleagues, like those who are present here, teaching Buddhist courses in a university institution. However, let me hope that at least in some way, other teachers involved as teachers in the humanities, not necessarily just Buddhist studies, we also find some inspiration in the Buddhist ideal being discussed. To begin with, let me highlight the Buddhist ideal of the balanced and harmonized development of personality as expounded in the teaching of the 5 spiritual faculties. And these are, I think you know very well. 1, Saddha. 2, Viriya. 3, Sati. And 4, Samadhi. And 5, Panya. This represents a comprehensively integrative approach that leads through Sati, through mindfulness, to the harmonization of the intellectual which culminates in liberative insight. And the affective, that is saddha, which culminates in the self-transcendent compassion. And of the externally dynamic viriya and the internally integrated. These are all to be harmonized through the practice of mindfulness. So the doctrine of the 5 indriyas represents the Buddhist ideal of the integration of the personality. An important traditional term in this context I like to highlight is Dhamma Vinaya. I'm sure you are familiar with this term. However, I believe that it should not be taken to merely mean Sutta and Vinaya. Dhamma meaning Sutta and Vinaya meaning the disciplines. But rather, or in fact not even doctrine and discipline. I think this term goes far beyond this kind of connotation. As an integrated term, it means essentially spiritual education, or better, creative education. This is what I would like to highlight in this short speech. So I prefer to understand Vinaya, this term, not just as disciplinary rules, monastic discipline, but the term itself from vi and ni. Ni means to lead, to guide, and vi means differently, distinctively. So it is guiding and leading distinctively to higher and higher different states of human existence. And this is Dhamma Vinaya. Dhamma Vinaya is a self-sufficient spiritual discipline, a religion in the true sense. And that is to say, a religion, you can say, maybe quoting Erich Fromm, and what he means by religion, and his assertion, proposition that the need for religion is rooted in man's very existence. And we have no time to elaborate it, but I've given the footnotes for those who are interested in this. So religion, the true sense, which conduces to the unfolding of the human potential to ever higher and higher levels. Humanity truly achieved its Buddha. The product of this creative or transformative education is the new man. I'm of course borrowing a modern philosophical term. Because the product, the whole process of education is creative in the sense that it transforms the person, the learner, and it leads to a new, brand new product. And that is what we call the new man. In Buddhist term, this is the Arya Pukala. Buddha being the Arya Pukala par excellence. A teacher, now, however, for this process of transformational education to be effective, there are prerequisites. Let me just quote one discourse called the Panya Sutta. There are many others, I'm sure, in the Sutta Pitaka. And this is an example to show the prerequisites on the part of the learner, right? For the learner to be transformed through Buddhist education. One is commitment. This is very important. You commit to your learning. You seek and enter into a spiritual relationship with the teacher, seeking instructions continuously while serving on him. I'm sure today you don't find this easily present, to say the least, you see, in the modern system. You have to enter into a dynamic relationship. You have to tune into the teacher's wisdom. You want to truly learn and truly motivated. Borrowing another modern term by Professor Abraham Maslow, a famous Buddhist psychology professor, that learner must be meta-motivated, motivated for higher values, for higher states of attainment, for truth, for the good, for the true, and for the beautiful. So this is one requirement. And secondly is love and respect towards the teacher. very often lacking today. And then, more distinctively Buddhistic, a keen sense of moral shamefulness, hirottaka, must be established within the student. And then for the actual transformation of the living in all aspects, this is a commitment. You don't just learn, you don't just acquire knowledge, but you transform yourself, you live according to what you have learned. So it involves the total person, the total being, the total living. And then practice, exclusively devoted to practice, relinquishing all social entanglement. And finally, meditative practice, developing insight into the determinants of phenomena existence. I have no time to elaborate, and there are notes for you if you're interested. I just want to emphasize that, among other things, I want to say that today the art of listening is lost. The art of listening consisting in receptivity, in sense of gratitude, and preparedness to be inspired. That's a very, very important term, inspired. Today is lost, especially those who are learning just online, for example. Think of that. And, today in the modern classroom, the teacher doesn't even know the names of the students. Because of the brevity of time, I will only highlight one more doctrine to illustrate. This is the doctrine of the Vimukta Ayatana. There are 5 of them, and we have time to deal with the first 2, which are the most relevant to teachers and students in this context. The first prerequisite for liberation, first of all, the first prerequisite for liberation is full commitment. This sutta that I have just mentioned on Vimukta Ayatana, Vimukti Ayatana, says like this: these 5 old people, the 5 bases, that is to say, for liberation, are the liberation bases wherein the bhikkhu is abiding, heedful, zealous, and committed. Note this term. His not yet liberated thought comes to be liberated, he is not yet fully destroyed, defilements come to be fully destroyed. And he comes to attain the not yet attained supreme spiritual security. Today we worry much about security, in a very shallow sense, and Buddhism offers the ideal of true, perfect security, and the term is yoga kaya, which is equated with Nibbana. Accordingly, the trainee, before embarking on training, he must be heedful, he must be zealous, he must be committed, resolute. And in fact, the corresponding exposition in the Sanskrit tradition for Yogachara Bhumi stresses also further qualities such as Suddha, Ashaya, pure inspiration, pure inclination. This corresponds quite well to what Maslow calls meta-motivation, and a strong desire to learn, of course. The outline of the 5 bases are as follows. First one, listening creatively. You don't just listen to the tape recorder in order to find the best answer for the exam to score an A. Listening creatively to the Dhamma, it says yatha yatha tassa deseti. In the manner that the teacher teaches, in that very, very same manner, in that very same manner, so tasmin dhammaye atta parisambheti cha hoti, dhamma parisambheti cha hoti. These 2 terms, of course, can be linked to the 4 parisambheti, but the essential meaning in this context is the gaining of direct insight into the teaching, not just intellectual understanding, not through the intellectual medium, but you directly realize, experience even, outlined before. This is a very interesting teaching. a good source of thought for modern education. Secondly, he teaches the Dhamma, not listening, but teaching the Dhamma in details as heard and as fully mastered. The first one is listening, second is teaching, all relevant to education. Thirdly, he recites the Dhamma, not just for the mere sake of preservation of the words of the Buddha. When he recites, he gains deeper and deeper. Every time you recite, you read the suttas like we do today. We read the sutta, we learn these things as students. But today I'm teaching in Hong Kong and other places, China, in the West, and so on. I read them again. I come to, I believe, a high level of inspiration, happiness, bliss. So, in the process of teaching also, that the teacher can be transformed, not just the student. That's a very interesting proposition. Then number 4 is continuous ponders over, investigate and examine the Dhamma. And finally, he grabs a meditation side, he meditates on it and penetrates with vipassana, today we say, with wisdom. I shall just say a few more words on the first 2 Vimukti. No time to read the Pali is here. I will just summarize the gist of it. It says the teacher teaches Dhamma to a bhikkhu, and in the manner, I've already translated earlier, in the manner the teacher teaches the Dhamma, in that very, very same manner, this represents commitment, faithful listening, receptive listening, and so on. In that very same manner, he comes to gain unmitigated insight or knowledge into the meaning of what he has learned. And this is called Parisamveda. Then to him who is so gaining direct insight, joyousness arises. When you can learn and be inspired like this, there's a tremendous amount of positive energy that is being released, and that joy. And from that joy, you have rapture, and from rapture, you have tranquility. Tranquility is a form of subtle joyfulness. And then even your body, not only your mind is tranquilized, your body is tranquilized, and you experience what is called bliss, sukha. And when your mind, body are experiencing sukha, you come to gain samadhi. Now this is not just concentration as ordinarily translated in English. Samadhi represents the fact of unification of all our disintegrated energies. All come together, unified, and a good word will be equipoise. Then to add to this, the Sanskrit version adds a couple of interesting steps to this. Next, so equipoise, samahita, he knows and sees truly as they are. Knowing and truly as they are, he becomes disgusted, he gets detached, and he is liberated. So it's a whole process, progressive liberation, and at each stage, he comes to attain subtler and subtler bliss. The Buddha's path is a path of bliss. Buddha's way is a path of bliss and happiness and freedom. And this is all through Buddhist education in the way that is highlighted. To summarize, what we can learn from this first phase is, first, the pupil does not simply accumulate knowledge, intellectual knowledge and information. Through his own receptivity and being inspired by the teacher's teaching according to truth, the pupil is transformed, hence this is creative. That's why we call this kind of education creative education. And uplifted to higher and more joyful, inspiring planes of experiences. The person is ultimately fully liberated. He transcends the human, the existential predicament, and he acquired both knowledge and wisdom. Not just knowledge, but wisdom, liberating wisdom. The second base, I think I have to go faster, and the main point here is that you can transform yourself, as I said, as a teacher. You don't just transcend the you don't just transform the list of your student, but in the very process of very sincere, existentially motivated, meta-motivated manner, you come to be transformed. Yeah? I will just highlight one example. I have two examples in detail for you, and you can read the details. I will just have time to highlight one example. This is from the Pali sources. The other one is from the Sanskrit sources called the Ashoka Avadana. I'll leave that out. So the first one from the Pali Milinda Panna, the story goes like this. We all know the brilliant Venerable Nagasena. And one day, an old Upasika came to him and offered dana to him. And that female devotee then requests Venerable Nagasena for a profound sermon. He doesn't just want ping, doesn't just want marriage. He wants to be inspired by the Dhamma. And she wants to become, she wants to practice. And she said like this, "Dear Nagasena, I'm old. Please give me a profound anumodana in the form of a profound Dhamma discourse." I'm translating very literally. You can see that, you can notice that in her request, she expresses what we may call existential anguish, as much as also her sincerity. Without doubt, she is meta-motivated in Maslow's term. Nagasena's sermon in response resulted in both himself and the listener attaining stream and tree. The description goes like this. I just translated English. Then Venerable Nagasena preached to that elder Upasika a profound thanksgiving discourse, that is Anumodana. Not just to please her, usually now you give a discourse like that at the end of a dana, simply to make, to gladden. That's also important, of course, the giver. But he wants to transform the lady, and he himself gets transformed that way. Then Venerable Nagasena preached to that Upasika the profound thanksgiving discourse that is supramundane and related to emptiness. Then to that elder Upasika seated on the very seat, immediately, in other words, the Dasri Tenas Dhamma I arose. And the Venerable Nagasena also having given that Anumodana, while reflecting on the Dhamma taught by himself, established in Sat. And the very seat, he gained stream entry. So both are transformed. This is a very important of thought for us, those who teach Buddhism. Of course we can't imitate the ancient, but the underlying principle we should ponder over. As Rhys Davies, Professor Rhys Davies underscores the powerful inspiration in this case, he says, and Nagasena also, while he has concluded that thanksgiving discourse, felt the force of the truth he himself has preached. And he too arrived at insight. I'll jump to conclusion now. While modern Buddhist education cannot possibly wholesale imitate the ancient Buddhists in the way that ancient, situation that arose maybe 2,500 years or more ago in the Indian environment, but at least in some ways and to some extent, it can learn from the principles underlying what we term transformative education, expounded in the Vimukta Ayatana Sutta. Of particular relevance, of course, the first two that were highlighted, learning and teaching the Dhamma. What are we doing here? We are learning and we are teaching and hopefully also learning. And the students are learning, right? Rather than being utterly overwhelmed and completely conditioned by the modern, especially I would say, or essentially I would say, Western value structure. Let's remind ourselves, be mindful. It is time for us to ponder over the purpose and methodology of teaching Buddhism. Mindfulness in its practice here of the true purpose of Buddhist education. Not just teaching as a job, not even as a career, but as a practice of the Dharma. We saw above that for our teaching and learning to be transformative psychologically, and spiritually, both I use the word spiritually in a very big sense, of course, admittedly, because it's a very difficult term to bring out all the connotations. But I mean something higher than just the intellectual, something higher than just what we understand as the so-called psychological today. The teacher must first be aware of the purpose of existence. And this is where religion comes in. Whether we think of religion as involving a God or not, but this is religion in the true sense. Be sincere and meta-motivated. When these prerequisites are fulfilled, religious education can and should lead to progressive unfolding of the human potential, and according to what we have seen above, according to the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha's way, this can be a progressively joyful and fulfilling process. Thank you very much.